Hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video. And what exactly is a windmill build? That is a question I get every time I mention it in a video. And what a windmill build is essentially a quick attack build for polearms that only really works up until level 50. You could push it higher versus the infested and probably the corpus as well. You could go maybe up to 60, 65-ish. But that's about it. It is a build that sucks in high levels. It is not an endgame build by any means, so if that's what you were looking for, this may not be the thing for you. It is, however, absolutely amazing for doing low-level missions, so low-level fissures, invasion missions, or generally just faffing around or doing nightmare missions. It is amazing for that. The basic version of the windmill build is also incredibly cheap. You can start it off on something like Orthos with just basic mods and it's going to be just fine. But as you move up in mastery and you get better gear, you can transition it onto something like Orthos Prime or ultimately the Guandao, which is in my opinion the best weapon for this kind of setup. And once you've been playing for a while, you can add a nice bit of oomph to the build by swapping some mods for their Prime variant instead. Now, there are two main reasons why we are using the windmill build on a polearm as opposed to any other weapon type. Number one, polearms have amazing range, especially Orthos, Orthos Prime, and the Guandao. They cover a massive area, especially if you have primed reach. And number two, their quick attack allows you to sprint without hindering your movement at all. So you can just sprint through the entire mission and mash the quick attack button without being slowed down. Now, the basic windmill build can be done as early as Mastery Rank 2, which is what you need to buy Orthos from the market. It is not expensive by any means, but if you're just starting out, you may need to farm a couple of resources here and there. It is not too bad though. And the build would look something like this. I'm doing it on the primed version because I don't have the normal one anymore, and the format that you see there is just in the stance. I didn't like the original stance, which for this build ultimately doesn't matter. So what you do is you slap on the stance, whatever stance it may be, then add pressure point for damage, fury for attack speed, and reach for a little bit of range, and then all you want to do is just add as much damage as you can. In this case, it would probably be North Wind and Molten Impact for a little bit of blast damage, and Fever Strike with Shocking Touch for corrosive damage. If by any chance you happen to get your hands on some fancier mods, something like Berserker or even Spoiled Strike, feel free to slap them on, but if you didn't, don't worry, this build is just fine without them. It's obviously not going to perform as well as the final build that we're going to be using on the Guandao, but it's a nice starting point or even something you can try out without investing any format to see if you would like the full build on the Guandao or not. I would also recommend running this on something like Rhino because there is nothing more annoying than sprinting through a mission and suddenly being grappled by an Ancient or a Scorpion or being knocked down by a Moa. The final, and in my opinion the best version of the windmill build is the one I'm using on my Guandao right now. So once again, we're gonna slap on the stance, whatever stance it may be. Then we're going to add primed reach for an enormous amount of range. Then we have primed pressure point for a ton of damage, berserker and primed fury for a ludicrous amount of attack speed. And this is just the way I prefer to do it. I like the fast attack speed. You can swap berserker out for something else if that's what you want to do. But, you know, this is in my opinion the most fun way of doing it. Then I've added true steel, which helps with the crit chance, which adds a nice bit of damage, but it also helps to proc berserker. So I can get up to 3 stacks very quickly. And finally, I'm using 3 90% elemental mods, so North Wind, Fever Strike, and Shocking Touch for corrosive and cold. Now, once again, this is the way I prefer to do it. What you could easily do here is sacrifice one of the attack speed mods and True Steel and replace them with Blood Rush and Body Count, which would give you really nice crit chance. But I just don't like to worry about the combo counter when I'm sprinting through a mission windmilling around. Now, as I have mentioned already, this build only really works up until level 50. The weaker units, even with the Grenier faction, will be fine up until level 70, but the stronger units like Bombards, Napalms, and Noxes are gonna become a problem right around that level 50 mark. It works much better versus the Corpus because they don't have any armor, so you can take it up to level 60, maybe 65, so maybe Sortie 1 and 2. And for the Infested, you could probably even do Sortie 3 if it's not like Forward Assassination, which I would not recommend you do with a melee weapon unless it's melee weapon only. I've had a windmill build for basically as long as I can remember. It started a few years back with Rhino and Orthos, which was my preferred setup to take into Dark Sector Infested defense. This was before Ancient Auras became a pain in the arse, so you could just cut them down by the 100 and never worry about them at all. Then I got Rhino Prime, which was faster and stronger, so that made it even better. Then I got Orthos Prime, which was just amazing. And then it kind of stayed on Orthos Prime until the release of the Guandao. Now, of course, I did a very serious build for the Guandao in my quick look because that's kind of what people expect. You know, they don't really want to see a goofy build when you're reviewing a new weapon. But I knew, even while I was making that video, that as soon as that video is done, I'm swapping it over to a windmill build. It's also one of the reasons why I did the Naros derp tank build, which doesn't really do anything other than sprint around really fast and not die. And by the way, the only reason why I'm calling it a windmill build is because you kind of look like a windmill when you're using the quick attack. That's it. And that's pretty much it for the video. It's just a goofy build that I've been running for like, what, 2-3 years? Bloody hell. And it's just a ton of fun in low-level missions, though don't expect it to perform amazingly well in sorties. So as always, guys, I thank you very much for watching. I would definitely recommend you check this build out, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Windmill, windmill for the land, turn forever hand in hand. Take it all in on your stride. It is sinking. Whoop! Scarp arm is falling off. There we go. Lovely.